Zero. Did you know that nearly 1 in 2 adults over the age of 65 experiences noticeable memory lapses more than once a week? Maybe it starts with something small, like misplacing your reading glasses or forgetting why you walked into the kitchen. You laugh it off. Just a senior moment, you say, but deep down you wonder, is this the beginning of something more serious? For many older adults, these tiny slips of the mind become more frequent and more frightening. Names disappear. Dates get mixed up, conversations fade, and slowly the world doesn't feel as sharp or familiar as it once did. It's heartbreaking, not just for the person going through it, but for the loved ones who watch them slowly drift away. What's even more concerning is that many of us are unknowingly feeding this process every single day. Through the food we put on our plates, yes, even the ones we've always believed were healthy. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Because the choices we make today can shape how clearly we think, remember, and connect tomorrow. So let's talk, honestly, kindly, and with hope. Your brain deserves the same care you've given to everyone else your whole life. In today's video, we're going to gently uncover 6 everyday vegetables that might not be as brain-friendly as we once believed, especially for those of us over 65 who are looking to stay sharp, independent, and connected to the people we love. Now, this isn't about fear or restriction. It's about clarity and empowerment. You deserve to know what foods may be quietly working against your memory and mental clarity, even the ones that show up on your plate every week. We'll walk through each one together in a calm, caring way, and I promise to give you easy-to-understand, practical information backed by emerging research and real-life experience. By the end, you'll feel more confident in your food choices and better equipped to support your brain health in a natural, safe, and nourishing way. This video is for informational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult your doctor, pharmacist, or a registered dietitian before making any major changes to your diet. Now, with that in mind, let's take a closer look at the first vegetable that might be quietly impacting your brain health. 1. Potatoes. Comfort food with a hidden cost. When I was growing up, Sunday dinners always meant one thing: mashed potatoes. Creamy, buttery, warm, a bowl of comfort that felt like home. Even now, the smell of potatoes roasting in the oven brings back memories of laughter around the table, of hands passing dishes and stories being shared. Potatoes have always felt safe, familiar, trustworthy. But as I've gotten older, and especially as I've watched loved ones face memory loss and cognitive decline, I've started to ask a deeper question. Could something so comforting actually be quietly contributing to the very decline we're trying to prevent? Potatoes, especially white potatoes, are rich in starch, essentially long chains of glucose. And while our bodies absolutely need glucose for energy, especially the brain, the problem arises when we consume too much of it too quickly. When you eat a large portion of potatoes, especially in their more processed forms, fries, chips, instant mashed potatoes, your blood sugar spikes like a roller coaster. For a moment, there's a surge of energy, but that spike is often followed by a crash. And over time, repeated cycles of this can lead to insulin resistance, a condition where the body's cells stop responding effectively to insulin. Why does this matter for older adults? Because insulin resistance doesn't just affect your blood sugar, it affects your brain. Studies have shown a strong link between insulin resistance and an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. The brain, which depends on a steady supply of glucose, starts struggling to access the fuel it needs. Think of it like a lamp that flickers, not because the bulb is bad, but because the power supply is unreliable. What's more, high glycemic foods like potatoes can lead to chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, two forces that quietly damage brain cells over time. For older adults, this can mean more than just a fuzzy memory or occasional forgetfulness. It can mean losing confidence in daily life, feeling more anxious or withdrawn, and struggling with tasks that used to be second nature. And as someone who values independence deeply, I know just how painful that loss can feel. That doesn't mean you have to give up potatoes entirely. The key is in how you prepare and portion them. Try enjoying a small baked potato, skin on for added fiber, alongside a plate rich in greens and lean protein. Avoid frying them or pairing them with processed fats. And if you love mashed potatoes, consider mixing them with steamed cauliflower. You still get the creamy texture, but with a gentler effect on your blood sugar. The truth is, food has the power to heal or to harm. And sometimes the most familiar foods deserve a second look. Not out of fear, but out of love for the life we want to keep living. Now let's take a look at the next vegetable, one that's just as common, but with an entirely different kind of hidden risk. 2. Corn, the sweet grain that's not always so sweet to your brain. A few summers ago, I visited an old friend who lives out in the Midwest. She has this beautiful garden that stretches behind her house. Rows of tomatoes, cucumbers, herbs, and right at the edge, a tall patch of sweet corn. That evening, she grilled a few ears right there on the porch. We slathered them in butter, added a pinch of salt, and ate them with our hands like we were kids again. It was perfect. Corn has a way of doing that. It feels warm, nostalgic, almost innocent. But here's the part most of us never question. Is this sweet, golden staple as harmless as it seems, especially for our aging brains? Corn is technically a grain, not a vegetable, and it's packed with carbohydrates. In small amounts, it can give you a decent boost of energy. But the real issue comes when corn becomes a daily regular, and not just in the form of corn on the cob. It hides in processed foods under different names: corn oil, corn syrup, cornmeal, and it's everywhere, from salad dressings to crackers to even your morning cereal. One of the biggest concerns with corn, particularly in its processed form, is its high omega-6 fatty acid content. Now, omega-6s aren't bad in and of themselves. In fact, our bodies need them. But here's the catch. We also need omega-3 fatty acids to balance them out. And most American diets? They're way off balance. Too much omega-6, not enough omega-3. That imbalance creates a breeding ground for chronic inflammation, especially in the brain. For older adults, chronic inflammation doesn't always show up as pain or swelling. It can look like foggy thinking, mood swings, poor memory, or a growing sense of disconnection. Inflammation quietly wears down the brain's ability to function at its best, and over time, this can pave the way for cognitive decline or even Alzheimer's. What makes it worse is how corn oil, commonly used in cooking and packaged foods, is highly processed and oxidizes easily. That means once heated, it can produce harmful compounds that further stress brain cells. It's a bit like using dirty fuel in a clean engine. It may run, but not for long. So what can we do? First, let's not demonize that grilled corn at the summer barbecue. Enjoy it now and then, but pay attention to the hidden corn in your pantry. Swap out corn oil for olive oil or avocado oil, and choose whole, unprocessed foods whenever possible. If you're craving something crunchy, try roasted chickpeas instead of corn chips. As someone who's watched a parent slowly fade into memory loss, I can tell you, every small change adds up. Choosing brain-friendly fats and cutting back on inflammatory ingredients can be one of the kindest, most powerful things you do for yourself. Next, let's move on to a leafy green that's often called a superfood, but might be sneaking something less than super into your brain. 3. Spinach, the leafy green with a surprising twist. It's hard not to feel proud when you eat spinach. After all, we've been told for decades by doctors, dietitians, even Popeye, that spinach is one of the healthiest foods out there. And to be fair, it does bring a lot to the table: fiber, iron, folate, vitamin K, and loads of antioxidants. I remember watching my mother gently saute spinach in a bit of olive oil, garlic, and lemon juice, a side dish that made her feel like she was doing something good for her body. I carried that tradition into my own kitchen. Spinach felt like a sure bet, a no-brainer when it came to eating clean and aging well. But as it turns out, even spinach has a hidden side, one that isn't talked about often, especially when it comes to brain health in older adults. Spinach is particularly high in oxalates, naturally occurring compounds found in some leafy greens, nuts, and seeds. Now, oxalates aren't inherently toxic, but in large amounts or in individuals who are more sensitive, they can bind to calcium in the body and form tiny crystals, especially in the kidneys. This is why people prone to kidney stones are often told to avoid high oxalate foods. But here's the surprising part. Oxalates may also affect the brain. Emerging research suggests that when oxalates accumulate, they may cross the blood-brain barrier, the delicate shield that protects the brain from harmful substances. Once inside, oxalates can trigger neuroinflammation and even neurotoxicity, interfering with how the brain communicates, remembers, and processes information. This is especially relevant for older adults whose brains are already more vulnerable to oxidative stress and inflammation. Have you ever felt inexplicably foggy after a meal, or noticed that your memory feels duller than usual, even when you've been eating healthy? For some, spinach may be part of that equation, not because it's bad, but because their bodies don't process oxalates efficiently. The tricky part is that many people don't realize they're sensitive. Genetic differences, past kidney issues, or even gut health problems can make oxalates more problematic. And while this doesn't mean spinach is the enemy, it does mean we should pay closer attention to how we feel after eating it, especially if we're experiencing cognitive dips, fatigue, or chronic inflammation. If spinach has been a go-to green in your meals, consider rotating it with lower oxalate options like kale, arugula, or romaine. Cooking spinach can reduce its oxalate content by nearly 30–50%, so gently steaming it or boiling it briefly before using it in recipes can also help. And always drink plenty of water. Hydration supports your kidneys in flushing out excess oxalates. In the end, it's not about giving up on greens. It's about choosing the ones that love your brain as much as you do. Sometimes the healthiest choice isn't the one everyone talks about. It's the one that works best for you. Now let's talk about a vegetable you've probably always believed was doing your brain a big favor, but might be working against you in ways you never imagined. For sure, tomatoes, the garden favorite that may not love your brain back. I remember the way my grandfather used to tend his tomato plants. Every morning, even before breakfast, he'd walk outside with a cup of black coffee and check the vines. He'd gently touch the leaves, inspect the fruit, and hum an old country tune under his breath. To him, those tomatoes were more than food. They were pride and a part of his daily rhythm. And when they were ripe, sliced tomatoes on toast, stewed tomatoes with garlic, fresh tomato salad, we had it all summer long. Like many of you, I grew up believing tomatoes were one of the healthiest things you could eat. And in many ways, that's true. Tomatoes are packed with vitamins C, K, and antioxidants like lycopene, which have been praised for protecting the heart and even lowering cancer risk. But here's a surprise. They may not be the best choice for brain health in everyone, especially as we age. You see, tomatoes belong to a group of plants known as nightshades, which also includes eggplant, peppers, and potatoes. These plants naturally produce compounds that are meant to defend them from insects and disease. One of those compounds is lectin, a protein that can interfere with digestion and nutrient absorption. While most people can tolerate small amounts of lectins, some, especially older adults with sensitive guts, may experience chronic low-grade inflammation as a result. Why does that matter for your brain? Because the health of your gut and brain are deeply connected. The two communicate constantly through what scientists call the gut-brain axis. If the gut becomes inflamed or imbalanced, that inflammation can travel up the vagus nerve and spark problems in the brain. You may not feel it as stomach pain, but you might feel it as brain fog, poor focus, low mood, or increased forgetfulness. For seniors whose digestive systems often become more delicate with time, tomatoes can unknowingly trigger this cascade. There's also solanine, another natural compound in nightshades. While tomatoes have less of it than potatoes, long-term or excessive intake can potentially contribute to neurotoxicity in sensitive individuals, especially those already dealing with cognitive decline or autoimmune conditions. But here's the thing. I'm not saying you need to throw out all your tomatoes. If you love them, start by cooking them well. Heat helps reduce lectin content significantly. Stewed tomatoes or homemade sauces are gentler on the gut than raw slices. And if you notice symptoms like bloating, fatigue, or memory dips after eating nightshades, it may be worth keeping a food journal or trying a short elimination to see how your body responds. Food isn't one size fits all, especially as we age, and learning to listen to how our body reacts is one of the wisest skills we can cultivate. That's not fear, it's self-respect. Next up, We're looking at a vegetable known for its deep purple skin and unique flavor, but it comes with compounds that may quietly interfere with memory and focus. 5. Eggplant, the elegant vegetable with a hidden edge. I still remember the first time I tasted eggplant, grilled slightly smoky, drizzled with olive oil, and topped with a little crumbled feta. It was at a small Mediterranean restaurant during a vacation, and it felt like I had discovered a secret ingredient from some ancient kitchen. Since then, eggplant has become one of those vegetables I reach for when I want something hearty but plant-based. It's beautiful, rich in color, and has a certain elegance that makes any dish feel special. But as I've come to learn, especially in my later years, when health becomes less about trends and more about truly listening to our bodies, eggplant can be tricky, especially when it comes to the aging brain. Eggplant, like tomatoes and potatoes, belongs to the nightshade family. These vegetables contain natural chemical compounds called alkaloids, and one in particular, solanine, has raised concerns in the wellness world. In small amounts, solanine isn't dangerous for most people, but for some, especially older adults with increased sensitivity or existing inflammatory issues, it may quietly stir up problems that are hard to trace. Solanine can interfere with acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that's vital for memory, learning, and focus. As we age, our natural levels of acetylcholine begin to decline. That's why Alzheimer's medications often aim to preserve or boost this chemical. So when we eat foods that might disrupt its function, like excess eggplant, it's worth asking, is this supporting my mind or making things harder? In addition to that, some people experience inflammatory responses after eating eggplant, particularly in the joints. While the science is still evolving, many in the natural health community have noted a connection between nightshades and increased inflammation in those with arthritis, autoimmune conditions, or cognitive decline. And because inflammation is such a central player in diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, even small triggers may become more important over time. Does this mean you need to eliminate eggplant entirely? Not necessarily. If you feel great after eating it, no joint stiffness, no brain fog, no bloating, then your body is likely handling it just fine. But if you've ever felt sluggish or mentally cloudy after a meal that includes nightshades, it might be worth experimenting. Try a 2-week break and see how your brain and body respond. You may be surprised by what you notice. If you do enjoy eggplant, always cook it thoroughly. Grilling, baking, or roasting reduces alkaloid content significantly. And pair it with anti-inflammatory ingredients like garlic, turmeric, or omega-3 rich olive oil to help your body balance the effects. The more I've learned, the more I believe that every meal is a conversation with your body. Sometimes listening closely can make all the difference between simply aging and aging with clarity, energy, and joy. Now let's turn to a vegetable that's often associated with sharp vision, but might have a more complicated relationship with your mind than we've been led to believe. 6. Carrots, the bright orange helper with a hidden warning. If you were to ask most people what vegetable supports eye health, I bet 9 out of 10 would say carrots. And it's true, they've earned that reputation for good reason. I remember my grandmother always telling me, eat your carrots so you can see in the dark. It was a playful way to encourage healthy eating, but there was truth to it. Carrots are rich in beta-carotene, which the body converts into vitamin A, an essential nutrient for vision, immunity, and even skin. So it might surprise you to hear that carrots, yes, humble, sweet, crunchy carrots, may not always be ideal for your brain, especially if eaten in excess or relied on too heavily in supplement form. Here's why. Beta-carotene, while a powerful antioxidant, is also a compound that the body must process and balance. When consumed in very high amounts, whether through frequent large servings of carrots or high-dose supplements, it can actually contribute to oxidative stress instead of preventing it. That's because the antioxidant system in our bodies works like a symphony. Too much of one instrument can throw the entire harmony off. For older adults whose antioxidant systems naturally weaken over time, this imbalance can be especially risky. Instead of protecting brain cells, an overload of beta-carotene may lead to cellular damage, increasing the risk of cognitive decline. In fact, some studies have shown that excess beta-carotene supplementation in seniors particularly those who smoke or have poor antioxidant balance, was associated with a higher risk of mental decline over time. Now, I want to be clear, carrots themselves aren't the villain here. A cup of raw carrots with lunch or a handful added to a stew or soup can still be a lovely, nutritious addition to your day. The issue arises when carrots are eaten in very large amounts every day, or when people take beta-carotene pills under the assumption that more is better. When it comes to brain health, more is not always better. Balance is the real key. So how can you enjoy carrots wisely? Start by mixing things up. Instead of relying solely on orange veggies, try rotating in green ones like broccoli, kale, or Brussels sprouts, which offer a different set of antioxidants. Roasted carrots with a drizzle of olive oil making a satisfying side, and pairing them with healthy fats actually helps your body absorb beta-carotene more effectively without overloading your system. Over the years, I've come to realize that supporting brain health isn't about giving up the foods we love. It's about being thoughtful, curious, and willing to adapt. Small changes, like moderating even healthy foods, can lead to big rewards. Clearer thinking, steadier moods, and the kind of energy that helps us stay engaged with the people and moments that matter most. And now that we've taken a deep, heartfelt look at these 6 everyday vegetables, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned and how to bring it all together in a way that feels empowering, not overwhelming. If this conversation is resonating with you, feel free to give it a like, share it with a friend, or leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. As we've seen, even the most familiar vegetables, potatoes, corn, tomatoes, spinach, eggplant, and carrots, can carry hidden risks when it comes to brain health, especially as we age. It's not that these foods are bad in themselves, but when eaten too often in the wrong forms or without balance, they can quietly contribute to inflammation, blood sugar spikes, and even cognitive decline over time. The good news? You don't need to overhaul your entire diet overnight. Small changes matter. Swapping corn oil for olive oil, steaming your spinach instead of eating it raw every day, or mixing in more brain-friendly greens, these are simple steps that can lead to real, lasting benefits. Every thoughtful choice you make is a gift to your future self. A clear mind, strong memory, and steady mood aren't just about luck. They're often about what's on your plate. You have the power to nourish not just your body, but your brain too. So be gentle with yourself. Start small. Stay curious. Your journey to better brain health doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to begin. If you found this video helpful or eye-opening, I'd love to invite you to subscribe to the channel so we can continue learning and growing together on this journey toward better health and aging well. And if any part of this conversation resonated with you, maybe a memory, a question, or even a personal experience, please take a moment to leave a comment below. I truly enjoy hearing your stories and reflections. Your words might inspire someone else watching too. We're building a community here, one rooted in kindness, knowledge, and real-life wisdom. Thank you for being a part of it.